In this video, we're going to have a look at how do we factorize quadratic equations that involve three terms. To factorize expressions involving three terms, the first step is to look for factor sets of C. Now, our C term is going to be our number on the end of our expression when it's in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. Once we have those factor sets, the second step is to use the factor sets and look for which ones of those factor sets add up to get to term B. The term B is our term in front of the x. Once I've identified which factor set then adds up to get us our term B, the third step is to write in factorized form using those two numbers from that factor set identified in step 2. So let's have a look at a couple of examples. So in the first example, I want to factorize the expression x squared plus 10x plus 16. Now that is a quadratic equation that matches the form x squared plus bx plus c. So I can use my steps to factorize three terms in a quadratic equation to be able to factorize the expression. So my first step is going to be look for factor sets that multiply to give me my C value, which is 16. So my factor sets that multiply to give me positive 16 is going to be 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. Now that I've identified my factor sets of 16, I want to add those two numbers together, and I'm looking for numbers that add up to give me my B value of my expression, which in this case is equal to positive 10. So I'm looking for numbers that add to give me 10. So 1 plus 16 is equal to 17, 2 plus 8 is equal to 10, 4 plus 4 is equal to 8. So I can use that to select a factor set of 2 and 8 as the factor set I need to use in my factorization. So my last step is to write the expression in factorized form, and that is going to be x plus 2, x plus 8. So using my two terms from my factor set to write the factorized form x plus 2, x plus 8. So the factorized form of x squared plus 10x plus 16 is equal to x plus 2, x plus 8. So in the next example, I want to look at factorizing x squared minus 9x plus 20. Now again, this is a quadratic equation, x squared plus bx plus c. So I can use the steps for factorizing three terms to factorize this expression. So my first step is to look for factor sets that multiply to give me positive 20. So those factor sets are going to be 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. So now that I've got my factor sets of 20, I need to do my second step, which is to work out which ones add up to negative 9. Now, because I'm looking for numbers that add up to negative 9, and at the moment all of my factor sets are positive numbers, I need to go ahead and change them to negative numbers. So it'd be negative 1 times negative 20, negative 2 times negative 10, negative 4 times negative 5. Now, if I multiply each of those factor sets together, I'm still going to end up with a positive 20 as I need for my first step, because two negative numbers equals a positive number. So for example, negative 1 times negative 20 still multiplies to give me 20. So now I can go ahead with step B and look for numbers that add up to negative 9. So negative 1 plus negative 20 is negative 21. Negative 2 plus negative 10 is negative 12. Negative 4 plus negative 5 is negative 9. So I've identified which factor set adds up to give me negative 9. So this is the factor set I'm going to use when writing my factorised form. So now I can complete my final step and write that factorised form using negative 4 and negative 5. So it's going to equal x minus 4, x minus 5. So the factorised form of x squared minus 9x plus 20 is equal to x minus 4, x minus 5. So in my last example, I want to factorise the expression x squared minus 4x minus 12. And again, it is a quadratic equation. So I can factorise using the steps to factorise 3 terms. So the first step is going to look for factor sets that multiply to give me negative 12. Now, because I'm looking for factor sets of a negative number, I know that one of my factors has to be positive and one of my factors has to be negative, because that's the only way to multiply 2 numbers to get a negative answer. So my factor sets are going to be negative 1 times 12, or 1 times negative 12, negative 2 times 6, or 2 times negative 6, negative 3 times 4, or 3 times negative 4. So now that I've got my factor sets, I can move on to step 2, which is to identify which factor set adds up to give me negative 4. So negative 1 plus 12 is 11. 1 plus negative 12 is negative 11. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. And 3 plus negative 4 is negative 1. So I can now identify that the factor set that adds up to negative 4 is 2 and negative 6. So now that I've identified my factor set, I can use the factors of 2 and negative 6 to write my factorised answer. So that's going to be x plus 2 and x minus 6. So the factorised form of x squared minus 4x minus 12 is x plus 2, x minus 6. So there are 3 examples of how do we factorise quadratic equations that involve 3 terms.